Alright, I got a new location for the Confracam. Alright, people think this is distracting to me. Well, no, I just sit here and think to myself when I drive around anyway, so I don't think so. It's a big coffee mug, huh? I talked to Gary a little bit in the Stickum, and sometimes I just have to leave Stickum all of a sudden because I'm getting too frustrated and I don't really want to go there. But I was talking to Gary about the Native Americans and just in general, crimes of our fathers kind of stuff. And so anyway, Gary's just not very consistent on this kind of thing. I mean, well, maybe he is consistent, but still it seems somewhat misleading, the recycling center over there. Seems a little bit misleading. I mean, what happened to the objectivity of suffering? I mean, it's an objective wrong. Now, my proposal to discuss was, you know, what about giving the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation back to the Lakota, or for that matter, all their reservations. But there's, you know, they were really given, if we'd kept our agreement, the Fort Laramie Treaty with them, basically the Dakotas would have been its own nation. And oh dear, that would have been terrible. Now what's the difference? Well, in the 90s, the Lakota on Pine Ridge we're trying to build, we're trying to grow hemp. They had a government tested and it came up 0% THC, indetectable, 000 THC. They're not allowed to grow it. Now, the Ukraine's allowed to grow it and we import their hemp, but we can't import Dakota hemp. And I don't support reparations as most people understand them, but I support looking at the situation, how we got where we are. And you don't just give money to some descendant. What you do is you look at the condition that you produced and you try to create infrastructure in order to, you know, fix that condition or provide some solutions for it. I think the least we can do with the Pine Ridge, with the Lakota, is admit that that they should have some self-determinacy. They've never given up. Gary, being an East Coaster, thinks of, you know, Native Americans as all diluted people that have been integrated to society, but the Pine Ridge Reservation has dwindled down from a land that the Lakota lived on for hundreds of years. Now, I'm not saying the Lakota are some sort of angel, and the Black Hills, which, while they're obviously spiritual place, I've only been there once, I got that impression. You know, the Lakota only moved in there, I guess, in the 1700s, they say. That's not the point. The point is that they were a nation. We had a war with them. We made a treaty. We made an agreement. We did not keep that agreement. It's that simple. Now, Gary seems to think, oh, agreement, they lost the war. Agreement, no, they didn't. We got a truce with them. And then when they went back to just living their life, we never stopped hassling them. We provoked conflicts, unbalanced conflicts with them. We did not keep our word with them, and they've been there ever since. Okay. They've refused payments. The least you could do is give them the reservation as a proper sovereign nation. I don't see what problem that could possibly be for us. It'd be more likely them. They more likely would make drugs illegal, and we'd still, our citizens would get them in there. It would be, they would still have an issue because they'd be a little tiny nation. Frankly, I'm prepared to talk about things more radical. Like, what about you drain Hetch Hetchy Reservoir and you give those back to Miwok? Now, it's true, we killed a lot of Indians that we don't even know the trace of where they lived, and there's no descendants at all. Obviously, not much you can do in that case, and Gary's asinine argument that was then, this is now, the war's over, face it, you lost, yeah, you're subject to atrocities, you're still subject to atrocities. One thing I find offensive about it is it's just like with the Opium Wars. We, as the Europe, the British and Americans as well, opiumed up the Chinese, and then we badmouth the Chinese immigrants for being a bunch of opium addicts. It's typical, you know, you're gonna criticize the Indians. Gary was going on about they're selling cigarettes over there. I don't know what he's talking about. But you go ahead and criticize a ghetto for being ghettoized when that was done on purpose, consciously. You want to know a big thing I mentioned to you before, I didn't know until a few years ago, but the Tulsa race riots. There's one, just a genocidal, just ridiculous. People were always that way. No. No, not all people are Nazis. Sorry. Nice try, Nazi, to get out of it, but no. Gary told me to call him the Lord Aryan or something. And I might want to do that. These are definitely perpetuations of a racial myth. Thinks it takes a manifest destiny from history and also doesn't have to pay attention to history. I don't think so. What's really weird about this is that this is all deducible from information available in the National Geographic circa 1975 to 85. And so it's funny that Gary isn't better exposed to it. I'm not defending the Lakota, really. I'm not saying they're perfect people. I'm saying that we made an agreement with them and we broke that agreement. And some people would like to go, oh, well, everybody broke their agreements. Everybody annihilated other peoples. Well, two things. One, no, everybody didn't. Not every one of these indigenous groups of people was genocided completely off the face of the earth. And two, the Lakota, Dakota, Nakota nations are one of those that didn't. They still exist. Now, they're just a fraction of their former selves. You might like to go, well, let's count that as nothing. No, let's not. Right? Now, the Pine Ridge Reservation, which I'm just using to be specific, there's other reservations and other tribes, of course, but it's good to be specific. The Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota is a sizable chunk of land. It is already occupied and operated by the Lakota, or maybe it's the Dakota. I guess it would be the Dakota. But be that as it may, it's already operated by them. Why not let them have actual sovereignty? What would be the problem? They might put an Iranian missile base in there. I'm sure we can handle that. At worst, it would be an embarrassment if they kept criticizing us, and so what? Could probably use that too. The agreements that are made by an organization, you know, this seems like a very American or European at most thing, where people can be all prideful. And Gary, I know he's like, well, my thing is I'm not prideful. I don't think there should be borders, whatever. Lots of people are all prideful, America, rah, 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 but when push comes to shove, they're like, I didn't do that. It wasn't my deal. Wasn't the one that said all the white people would stay off your land. We made a treaty with the Lakota. Basically, if we had kept the Treaty of Fort Laramie just a couple hundred years ago, less than a couple hundred years ago, 160, 150 years ago, 40 years ago, something. And if we kept that, they basically, you know, the North and South Dakota would be an Indian nation. That's impossible. That was never going to happen, Piro. Oh, it happened some places. I mean, the Bolivians, look how fucked over they were, and they're still a bunch of traditional native Bolivians alive. Yeah. You have a cynical view of history, and yet somehow you've used it to excuse yourself for the responsibilities of that history. It's odd. You're an odd group of people. Most of you. By my standards. By my standards, most people are odd. It's a somewhat ridiculous premise to use the Gary Bluster talking about how people just need to give up on the suffering that they've been put through, and they've held on, and I guess it's just everything's suffering, get used to it. We won the war. Well, you didn't. The war might not be over yet. It takes two sides to decide when the war is over. Now, they tried to end the war, as I was saying, with this Fort Laramie Treaty, because they were sometimes kicking our ass. So we made a deal. It's like, hey, okay, let's stop fighting and just let people pass on the Oregon Trail, which they did do. We were supposed to make sure white settlers didn't fill up the Dakotas. We did not do that. Then, when the Indians took action against those settlers, we acted all indignant, like the savages were attacking again. Okay, we broke the deal. End of story. It's not really historically controversial. I'm sure Fox News has an opinion about it, but it's not historically controversial, that part. We were responsible for keeping our word and policing our people to our agreements, and we never did. And a big part of it was this idea that, oh, people are savages, you don't have to keep your agreements with savages. No, you do. You have to keep your agreement with anybody. Or don't make the agreement. If they're so-called savage, then they'll be the ones having trouble keeping the agreement. But we were savage, and we just projected that on the peoples of the world. We were savage. We projected that. Like a cheating spouse that's jealous. Project it. You can't just let people do that. You can't just let people do Deadwood and then, oh, look, the savages are attacking us. You have to keep your agreements because of who you are. Alright? But what if they're not keeping their agreement? Well, that doesn't apply here. They were keeping their agreement. They let us pass and fill up the West Coast, and we just surrounded them, and then we're like, well, take backsies. It's ridiculous, and it's not over. Yeah, there's plenty of tribes where you'll never find out what happened. Well, the Lakota aren't one of them. We know. There's some of them left. They have every right to be pissed, and guess what? They are. They should get over it. You should get over it. A lot of you have guilt hang-ups. And you think I do. You think I bring this stuff up and it's like, why are you going to focus on it feeling so guilty? White guilt, guilty though it's over. But I don't feel the guilt of it. I feel the opposite of that. I felt guilty when I found out about it, but the more I think about it, the more I come to grips with what has to happen as a result and how I feel. As a result of my indirect but undeniable part in all of this. You guys are the ones that have a guilt hang-up. You're like, you're so petrified. You've heard of this stuff. You felt that initial pang, and then you've gone, oh, but there's nothing it could do about it. You're afraid of that feeling coming back. That's what I think. You don't want to face it, and you use excuses like, but you can't make me pay a reparations, I can't be put in jail for that. Yeah, I know. You use that as an excuse not to even admit it. I can't do anything about it, so I don't even have to admit it. That's what I'm getting. From all quarters, liberals, conservatives. And people that say life would have just been this way anyway. Oh my God. Life is its own way, man. The way it actually happened, that's the way life is. You should just face facts, yeah, and there may not be reparations, but there's lots of things we could do. Lots of things. For one thing, let's stop blowing shit up. Or how about even this? How about let's stop, when we do blow shit up, let's stop thinking the shit is gonna thank us for it. Thank you for blowing me up. Yeah, that's real likely. What do you need to know that you do not know yet in order to comprehend, to grasp the radically extreme unlikeliness of such expectations? But that was then, this is now. Well, this is where we're still expecting that. I heard Rumsfeld saying the same damn shit. Yeah, we put Saddam in there, and a lot of those guys don't like him because he's a dictator. They're gonna love us when we come and fix it again. I mean, the hubris of it. I mean, one, thinking that you could fix it. That's pretty surprising. But I'm into that. I'm into the yes, because I think if I had been the president with the Iraq war, yeah, it would have been simple. You just have the Iraqis, you know, give them the billions of dollars of reconstruction money. So I'm fine with that. Let's do that little hubris there. Let's think that it's possible to do. Let's think that it's possible we would do it. That part I know that wasn't possible, but even if you did successfully do it, the idea that they would thank us for it, thank us for putting in the asshole, thank us for taking them out, thank us. I don't think so. Well, they should get over it. We won the war, man. Didn't they hear? Oh wait, I'm sorry, I got the Iraqis confused with the Indians again. I mean, basically, Americans still think the Native Americans were savages. Like they didn't have literature and stuff, so hey. They don't seem to realize that these were full-on nations, even the tiny ones, with history and value and special insight, skills, crafts. Roles to play in a modern world had they been left to continue, and they would have adopted technology, of course, just like they had. I mean, the Lakota had adopted the horse just in the 1700s. It became one of their favorite things. Changed their whole life, technology of the horse. Yeah. Sometimes people have resented me for various things. Sometimes they were my fault. Sometimes they were not my fault. Sometimes they were my fault, but unintentional. But I understood. Sometimes they were not my fault, and I still understood. I think a big hang-up you guys seem to have as I talk to you over these many low years is that you don't know how to deal with resentment. You sure as hell don't seem to know how to deal with your own resentment, right? But you really don't know how to deal with other people's resentment of you. Maybe it's related. Maybe because you have resentments that you have not ever had satisfied, like against your mommy for not getting you an ice cream. You can't process the resentments of, say, a Lakota child that's sort of pissed that you fucked them over for 250 years. Huh. You can't process the one because you haven't processed the other, and then you go, well, they're all equal. Nobody's happy. I didn't get an ice cream either. And you're just whiny babies. And not the cute kind either, but just the whiny, just the gross, whiny kind like they have in ghost babies that never even lived because they're just ghost babies. Gross, not cute little babies. Little gross skeleton babies. Skull babies. Well, that's what you are. I'm just trying to talk truth to you while I park at the Target. Okay. Alright. Peace out. And remember your past.